Saving a lot of money for your retirement is a good thing, but making sure you don't run out of money during retirement is even better. Coming up on Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group, we share the results of a brand new TIAA-CREFF survey of the American people, your biggest fears in retirement, and we'll tell you how to make sure you don't run out of retirement income.
And welcome back to Your Money Matters, your weekly peek inside the complex financial world. You listen to the show so you can retire with peace of mind. And what better people to tell you about that than Christy Smith, president of the Presley Group, and Matt Kennedy. Christy and Matt are experts at helping you plan for a successful retirement. They teach their clients how to position their retirement money to avoid losses due to stock market conditions. They have helped hundreds of clients achieve their retirement goals, and they can help you. Here are your hosts for Your Money Matters, Matt Kennedy and Christy Smith.
Good morning and welcome to Your Money Matters, brought to you by the Presley Group. I'm Christy Smith, joined this morning with my co-host, Matt Kennedy.
Well, good to see you, and I'm so proud of you because a couple of weeks ago you said you had been putting off your diet and going to MetaFast, and you did it, and I can already see the 5 pounds you've lost. I can already see it in your face.
The biggest step, Matt, was making the phone call and walking in the front door. The lady that helped me the first morning I got there, she wanted to be so detailed and wanted to give me all the information. And after about an hour and a half, I was like, look, just give me the stuff. I've already made my mind up. I think she thought she had to sell me. And little did she know I was already sold before I walked in the door. And so it was just a matter of implementing. And we talk about that every week. When we are at work, we talk about making a plan and sticking to that plan to get you where you want to be in retirement. And I got to tell you, it feels really good for me to be on a plan. I can see where I'm going to be in another 6 months from now. Rick and I are going on a cruise in May.
Oh, good.
And so I just want my pictures to look good.
What's the hardest thing so far? Giving up your...
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, giving up your beloved Dr. Pepper.
But...
Folks, you don't understand. Christy loves Dr. Pepper like Congress loves spending money.
I do. But you know what? I really find that it hasn't been as difficult as I thought it would be, simply because I'm driven. I've made up my mind. And I think that's what it's really all about. It's about making up your mind to do things differently. And when I walked in the door at the MetaFast office a week ago, I had my mind made up. And I knew then they were going to say, get off that Dr. Pepper. And so, to be quite honest with you, it hasn't been as difficult as I imagined it would be. And it's not that difficult working with our clients that decide they want to change their retirement future. I mean, it's about making that dedication and taking that first step.
Well, Christy, that's a perfect segue into our primary discussion today, which is a brand new survey that's out from the pension and annuity company TIAA-CREFF. They have a brand spanking new survey out. They surveyed about 1,000 Americans, 18 and older, about their retirement plans, and it's really eye-opening. We're going to go through this kind of step by step, but what they found was still most Americans grossly underestimate how much income we're going to need in retirement. We need a fundamental mind shift in this country away from how big is my nest egg to how long is my nest egg going to last. And this survey says we've made progress, but we have a long way to go.
Matt, earlier in the week, I was working with a couple that came in, and the wife had retired about 6 months ago, and her spouse was going to retire in 2 years. And so we were talking about income, and it's funny because when I asked them how much income did they think they were going to need during retirement, that they looked at each other and they were like, well, we really don't know. And it just amazes me that so close to retirement, you don't know how much income you're going to need.
But they're not alone. Listen to what the survey found. 72% of those surveyed, call it 3/4 of people surveyed, Christy, said they either do not have or they're unaware if their current retirement plan has a lifetime income option.
Wow.
So they're not really that uncommon. Almost 3/4 of Americans don't even know if their plan that they're in now allows for retirement income. Pretty stunning.
Well, it absolutely is stunning. But, one of the things that I hear a lot is that people think that the only important number in retirement is the amount of money they need to have. They don't understand the importance of knowing how much income you need to have. And it's so important. I mean, when you're building a financial retirement plan for your future, don't you want to know that it's going to be successful?
Well, and what most people do, according to the survey and according to the years that you and I have done this, because I know you're going to nod your head vigorously saying, yeah, that's right. People say, okay, I've amassed this amount of wealth. Now I'll withdraw it. I'll stick to the 4% rule. I'll withdraw about 4% of my portfolio, and I should be okay. So it turns into a guessing game, but listen to what TIAA-CREFF found out. 53% of people who have savings say their primary plan is to use withdrawals, again, the 4% withdrawal, right, as one of their primary sources of monthly retirement income. Yet, TIAA-CREFF's own research showed that if a retiree makes withdrawals from their retirement savings that are equal to the income payments they would receive from one of the strategies we use, which is a lifetime annuity with an income payout, assuming the same rate of interest, there is a greater than 50% chance that that person will outlive their savings if they're doing it themselves and not using an annuity. Now, that sounded cumbersome, so let me put that in real layman's terms. If you're saying, oh, I'm good, I'm going to withdraw 4% a year and I shouldn't run out of money, there's a greater than 40% chance that you won't, a greater than 50% chance that you won't do it right and you'll run out of money.
It's amazing. That is totally amazing, Matt. And, you know, when you think about the fact that we're living so much longer, you know, women have always been believed that they're going to outlive men. But I'm looking at a fact from the Social Security Administration, and it shows that a 65-year-old woman may live to 86, but that a 65-year-old man might reach age 84. You see, it's closing the gap. We have to plan to live so much longer, and the reality is most people don't know how to do that.
No, they don't. We're going to offer you something today that's brand spanking new, and I really think you'll find it most beneficial. It's offered only online. It's free, but you have to go to our website, safemoneyplan.net, to get the changing story of retirement. This is a PDF file, which is a beautiful, beautiful brochure if you want to print it out. It's about 20-plus pages. But it talks about the history of retirement and how history has a way of repeating itself. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up with a massive retirement crisis because people aren't properly income planning for retirement. So to get your free brochure, simply go to the website, safemoneyplan.net. Safemoneyplan.net, and you'll see the link on the homepage. Now listen, if for any reason you don't have internet access, I know some of you don't mess with the internet, and I understand that. Simply call us. We'll print and mail you a copy of this brochure. Our phone number is 791-5773. Again, 225-791-5773. Just say, I want that brochure Matt and Christy were talking about, the changing story of retirement. This brochure isn't trying to sell you any one company or any one plan. It's just helping you fix your mindset on changing the way you think about retirement. You have to think about dieting and Dr. Pepper differently, right?
Yes, you do.
The same is true for retirement. We've got to get away from the mindset of how much money do I need and into a mindset of how long will it last.
Well, and Matt, one of the things that really stood out to me earlier in the week, just as we're working with different clients, is that a lot of people aren't aware that if they're over 59 and a half, they may have the opportunity to move some of their money out of their current 401k plan. A gentleman I was working with earlier in the week said, I'm not going to retire for 2 years. So he didn't think that he had any options, but yet he was over 60, and the reality is he does. And so if you're over 59 and a half, you may have the potential to be able to do what's called an in-service distribution. And that will allow you to take some of the money out of your 401k and shift it into a plan that gives you better control. A lot of times can give you better safety and better guarantees.
Now, some people may say, oh, but wait a second. If I'm 60 or 61 and I take money from my 401k, don't I have to pay taxes? And the answer is no, because you're not taking that money out to spend it. We would simply transfer the money into an IRA, giving you the safety, because the survey from TIAA-CREFF revealed this. 40% of Americans want to ensure that their savings are safe regardless of what happens in the financial markets. That number is way up since 2008. 40%. Now, these aren't just baby boomers, Christy. These are Americans 18 or older saying, look, I want to know that my savings are safe regardless of what happens in the market. I'll bet you if TIAA-CREFF surveyed only those 55 and older, that number may jump to 60 or 70%.
You're right, Matt. And when I look at that number, I think about years ago when my dad retired from Exxon. And I think about how he, I was just brand new in the business and he didn't know any better. He worked at Exxon. He knew what he was doing at Exxon, but he didn't know how to invest money.
So did he follow the Exxon herd?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I call it. They all go to the same brokerage firm, right?
Yeah, and ultimately lost over half of his portfolio. And so by the time he came to me and said, okay, I can't sleep at night, I need some help, it was really a sad thing. I could see the concern in his eyes, and I got to tell you, I think it took years off of his life, to be quite honest with you. And so, we are in a different environment. We do have to do things differently. We can't rely on the same things we did 30 years ago. The 4% rule simply doesn't apply any longer.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal had an article last year stating that very thing, that because of market volatility and the way the rest of the world impacts our markets, it really should be the 2% rule. Well, can you live on 2% of your savings? Probably not. But I think the most interesting number to come out of this TIAA-CREFF survey of American adults about retirement and retirement income, 44% of those surveyed said they're concerned about running out of money in retirement. Christy, 40% say they want to ensure that their savings are safe regardless of what happens in the markets. And an even greater percentage, 44%, getting close to half of Americans, say that they're concerned they'll run out of money in retirement. Allianz Life, one of the companies we use, Allianz, did a survey a couple of years ago and found that the greatest fear among baby boomers was not death. It was running out of money in retirement and being poor in retirement. You look at those two things combined, folks, this is what we do. This is how we help you. First of all, we make sure you don't lose money when the market's going down. And secondly, we make sure you don't run out of money.
Well, just let you know, Matt, that you've picked a great time to leave your radio career and just join us full time at the Presley Group, because that's in fact what we do. We teach you how to protect your nest egg, how to guarantee that you never run out of retirement income. That's what these plans that we work with do. Now, don't think that if you don't need income that we're not for you, because we have some great plans that are designed just for the accumulation stage in your life. But the reality is most of us, when we're dealing with retirement money, we're looking for retirement income that we simply cannot outlive. And that's what we specialize here at the Presley Group. This is not new. While this survey may be current, and while it shows that the trend is getting higher, people want more safety, people want guaranteed income. We've been doing this now I've been personally doing this for 17 years in May. So, this is not new to me. People need to have a plan, just like my dad. Think about how my dad would have felt when he retired from Exxon, if he would have never had to suffer that huge loss in his retirement portfolio and worry, how was he going to manage the rest of his life? He retired at 57 years old, Matt. People have to understand that there are other options, and you owe it to yourself to learn the differences. You can give us a call and schedule a complimentary visit to just come in and meet with us. We'll sit down, have a cup of coffee. I can have coffee on my diet.
Good.
And we're going to talk about what your goals are, your needs, and let us show you some different ways that we can help provide that roadmap for retirement. Give us a call at our office. Our number is 791-5773, 791-5773.
Some more numbers from this TIAA-CREFF survey. This is a survey that the insurance and annuity company and pension company TIAA-CREFF recently conducted. 21% of Americans aren't saving for retirement at all. But remember, this survey was of adults 18 and older. That doesn't really surprise me. Only 21%, though, say they have a plan set up to receive income from some type of annuity. But that number is growing. It's about 3% higher this year than it was last year. And when you look at the numbers, 40% don't want to risk losing money. 44% are afraid they'll run out of money in retirement. Christy, why are only 21% of people looking at using the strategies and tools and plans that we use? There's a gap of 20-something% there, and we're here to help close that gap.
Well, it's just because they don't know.
That's right.
You know, I tell my kids all the time, and they get mad at me when I say this, but I say, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And they look at me like I'm stupid, and I'm like, you don't know, you know? And that's the reality, is that most people don't understand that there are tools and options available that can help them protect their money. They think safety means I'm not going to grow my money. And that is another concern, even though it's not really showing it in this survey.
Right.
They think that if they use an annuity, that they're simply giving their money to the insurance company to get it paid back to them. But they don't realize often that we can grow the money also. You know, and then another major concern is then passing on that money to their families once they're gone. While I'm seeing less and less people concerned about, you know, passing wealth on to their family, they do want to know what's left is going to go to their family. It's not that they are really centered around leaving money to the kids. They're centered around not outliving their income. But they do want to know that what's left will ultimately lead to the families. And so our plans do exactly that. They just don't know.
Yeah, and this is your opportunity to learn. It doesn't cost you a dime to pick up the phone, call, and then say, hey, give me an hour of your time, Matt or Christy. Let's sit down and let's talk. It's a free, no-obligation visit at 791-5773. Christy, I agree. Many people don't know, and so they don't bother to call and learn their options because my broker's not telling me about this, so if I haven't heard about it from him or her, then it must not be good. No, it's because that broker, their job is to keep you in the market, not to put you into an insurance product. But I believe one of the real challenges that our industry faces, it's the A word. I mean, when I told my parents 7 years ago, 6.5, that I had met you and I was considering coming to work with you, my mom heard the word annuity, and immediately my mom, her eyebrows shot up and her nose wrinkled. That's my mom's way of saying, whoa, what? Oh, I had one of those annuities. That's awful. I said, Mom, what kind? Turns out my mom was in a variable annuity. The market took a big downturn in 2008, and what they thought was safe really wasn't. They didn't understand it, and when it matured, the principal was much lower than what they had put in because of that word variable. I said, Mom, Christy doesn't use variable annuities. We have fixed index annuities. But even my parents, who are very savvy people and very happy clients now, by the way, that word was a bad word to them. And I know you see a lot of that.
Well, I told you in the very beginning when you came to work with me that, you know, the worst word in your language was going to become annuity.
Yeah.
And that's because people just have this terrible misconception. And a lot of that resolves around, you know, friends and family thinking all annuities are alike. You know, we all can speak to someone who in the past was sold a variable annuity at their bank or at their brokerage firm.
Right.
And most people in a variable annuity aren't happy. I say most. There may be a few that are happy, but very rare, okay? And so they're quick to tell their friends and family how unhappy they are with the product that they own. The problem with that is, Matt, is that most people don't understand that, in fact, there are many different types of annuities.
Absolutely.
And there truly are. And I had to teach you that in the very beginning.
Oh, absolutely. So just to expound a little bit, Christy and I are not going to look at using a variable annuity because the survey says 40% of Americans want to ensure that their savings are safe regardless of what happens in the markets. We've had a great run. The market's way high, which makes now the perfect time if you need income down the road or if you just need safety with growth of giving us a call, and let's take a look at how fixed index annuities work together in your overall portfolio to accomplish what TIAA-CREFF says you want. Because they're saying you don't want to lose your money and you don't want to risk outliving your money. So we're offering you, again, a free consultation, and if you'd like to download this brochure, The Changing Story of Retirement. Great brochure. Talks about Social Security, long-term care planning, talks about a brave new world, the future of retirement. What is it going to look like down the road, and how can we help you? Again, to get your brochure, it's a free download. It's at safemoneyplan.net, or you can simply call us and request that. We'll mail it to you, or better yet, come sit down with us. We make good coffee here. You've got that Dunkin' Donuts little coffee. Oh, it's so good. And we'll sit and talk about helping you plan for a future that has certainty. Again, our number is 791-5773.
You know, Matt, I also want to, I just want to talk for a minute about how there are so many different people in our industry offering these types of plans. I mean, if you look at on a weekend, just here in Baton Rouge, we'll hear 3 or 4 different people on the radio that do exactly what we do.
A lot more since I got in the business with you in 2008. I mean, many more people have shows and are doing this now.
Yes, they are. But what I want you to know is that really, if you think that you need to learn about these plans, it's not even a bad idea to maybe go to more than one. Don't just go to one because you hear them on the radio and say, okay, I'm going to choose these. Maybe you need to take the time to go visit 1 or 2, maybe even 3, because what you're going to find is that we're all different. We're not all the same. Even though we use the same tools and strategies, we are different in the way that we fundamentally do business. What I find, and I love this about us, is that so many people come into the office. They come in for their annual reviews, and they enjoy being here. They like coming here.
Right.
And they like that because they know that we're going to be very honest with them. There's never going to be any surprises, and they're treated like a member of our family. We're not, I always say beware of the traveling salesman, because I can tell you if they're not inviting you to their office, they may not have one. It might be a home office. It might be a very small hole in the wall. We're here to stay. I've been in business for almost 17 years, and, our job is to really make a difference.
Right.
I mean, when people ask me all the time, they say, Christy, what really makes you go? What makes you tick? What makes you get up in the morning and do this job every day? And it all revolves back to one story, and that story is my dad. I mean, my dad gave his life at Exxon, 35 years. I can remember many times he couldn't go and do things with us because he worked shift work. My mother drove a school bus to make sure that we could get a Catholic education that she wanted us to have. I mean, they made sacrifices.
Right.
They saved and thought that when they retired, life was going to be easy. But unfortunately, because they dealt with a brokerage firm that didn't understand their concerns. When my dad said to that broker, I can't afford to lose this money, this is the only money I have, that broker didn't listen. Because if he did, he wouldn't have lost 50% of his portfolio. We are going to listen, and that's what makes us different. You owe it to yourself to learn what options are available. But then you got to decide who are you going to choose to work with. And that's where we're going to stand apart. Because, yes, there are other people in the area that do the same thing we do. They use the same tools we use, but they don't operate the way we do.
A gentleman asked me a few days ago, I was meeting with him, and he asked a great question. Matt, what makes the Presley Group different? Because he knows, he hears other shows. You talked about your dad. I told him about my grandfather. Long gone now. My grandfather, though, worked with my uncle at a car dealership in Angie, Louisiana, Washington Parish. And here's what made my grandpa different than every other car dealer in the area. They sold used cars. And when you came on the lot and talked with my grandfather, he would walk you around the car. He would say, now, look, I got to tell you, this car was in a minor fender bender, and I did the best I could with the Bondo here and the paint, but you can still see a little shimmer there. Oh, and the door sometimes sticks. And my uncle was like, why are you telling people all the negatives? My grandpa said, because that's the way I would want to be treated. If I make the decision to buy the car and you've been 100% transparent and honest with me, then that's the way I would want to be treated. So I'll echo what you said. We treat you the way we would want to be treated if we were dealing with someone.
And if you come into the office for just one visit, you know that we are different. You know, it is a different experience working with us. People actually enjoy coming back for their next visit.
Our phone number is 791-5773, 791-5773. Look, we've talked about this TIAA-CREFF study, but the Employee Benefit Research Institute, every year they conduct a survey about the attitudes about retirement. We'll talk to one of their survey takers and find out new attitudes about retirement. Coming up next, here on Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group. Back on Your Money Matters, presented by the Presley Group. And again, you can find us online at safemoneyplan.net. That's safemoneyplan.net, where online you can request your free brochure, a free download today, about the changing face of retirement. Very, very good booklet, and that's yours for the asking at safemoneyplan.net. So we've unveiled some numbers from TIAA-CREFF and this survey they've got out about Americans and our fears about retirement and the things we know and don't know about retirement planning, if you will. I had the chance not too terribly long ago to talk to Jack Vanderhei. Jack Vanderhei is a spokesperson for the Employee Benefit Research Institute. Every year they come out with a survey of Americans and our attitudes toward retirement. And their survey is a little more narrowly focused than the TIAA-CREFF survey. The Employee Benefit Research Institute survey focuses more on baby boomers who are nearing retirement. So I think you'll find this some interesting information about the attitudes we have toward retirement in my conversation with Jack Vanderhei from the Employee Benefit Research Institute. I asked him to talk about their most recent findings.
Well, we've been doing this for 22 years now, and we have found that since 2009, the current active workers have the lowest confidence ever in terms of their ability to afford a comfortable retirement. We have taken a very close look at what people have done in response to those lowered expectations and lower confidence. And basically, when people figure out that they're not on track for a comfortable retirement, they essentially have two options. One is to start saving more today, and the other is to just wait and see what happens when they get to 65 or 66 or 67, and if they don't have enough money, just defer retirement. Unfortunately, the vast majority of these people seem to be taking the second route. They defer the immediate pain. In fact, people making less than $35,000 are contributing even less under our survey in 2012 than they were in previous years, and just assume that they'll just keep working when they get to 65 or so. The big problem is that when we also go back and interview current retirees, we find this year that 50% of them were basically forced to retire earlier than they had planned, either because of their health status, their spouse's health status, or they just didn't have a job. So it's a really risky gamble that you're going to just be able to continue working past 65.
And one thing that really jumped out at me, too, was the growth in the percentage of people, and I'm stating, again, what you've already stated, but it's so important, who are going to rely almost solely on Social Security. And for those of us in our 40s, that plan may change radically down the road, right?
Well, there's no doubt that if you take a look at the Social Security Actuaries Report, and they put it up on SSA.gov every year, that currently in the year 2036 or 2037, the trust fund is expected to go to zero. That doesn't mean the Social Security benefits go to zero. That only means that there's only enough money coming in currently at that time to pay about 75% of what you've been promised. So unless something changes, if you're relying only on Social Security, that might mean as much as a 25% reduction in the benefits that you thought you were going to get.
We're talking with Jack Vanderhei. He is with the Employee Benefit Research Institute. The report, and it's very in-depth and very eye-opening, is at ebri.org. Also, what jumped out at me in the summary was 56% of workers, 56%, report that they nor their spouse had actually even calculated how much money is necessary in retirement. It's almost, Jack, like people, well, if we don't talk about it, maybe it won't happen, right?
Well, that's true. And again, this is a percentage that has been fairly constant for the last 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
It may not have been so troubling in the past when people were in the old traditional pension plans, the defined benefit plans, where the employees didn't have to do anything. But now that they have primarily moved to defined contribution 401k plans, which can provide at least as much retirement income if you know what you're doing.
Right.
But it depends on the employee to choose to participate, to figure out how much to contribute, and figure out how to invest those monies. So it is now more necessary than ever before that the employee and the spouse basically have a feel for what their target goal is, so they know whether or not they're on track.
Also from the survey, this one just really opens my eyes. In 1991, you report that 11% of workers, 11% in 1991, said they expected to retire after age 65. But by 2012, in this survey, now 37% people are facing the reality they're going to have to work longer. What's driving that?
Well, a lot of things. First, just to get in the technical weeds a little bit, in the year 2000, the age at which you can get your full Social Security benefits started to creep up beyond age 65. It's currently about 66 and will be going up to 67. So for some of the people, that explains it. But I think for the vast majority of the individuals who are now saying, I'm going to have to retire beyond age 65, it's they realize that they're already in their late 40s or maybe early 50s and have saved virtually nothing, and they just don't see any way they're going to be able to save enough while they're still working to be able to get out by 65.
And I am stunned, as I guess you may have been too. 60%, according to this research from you all at EBRI, 60% of people presently working report that the total value of their savings and investments is less than $25,000. What happened? When did we stop saving money as a country, as a people?
Well, unfortunately, there is this misperception that it used to be a lot better than that. Actually, it's always been extremely low. Quick footnote, that does not include the value of the house, and it does not include any traditional defined benefit they may have had. But basically, those numbers have always been extremely small when you look at the entire population. Specifically, if you're an employee who works for an employer that does not sponsor a retirement plan, the savings for those types of employees have always been very, very small.
And also in the study, by the way, which is online at ebri.org, I find that it interesting, too, that only about 12% of the people you all surveyed said they either would or have looked at a plan that would give them some sort of guaranteed income in retirement. Why the reluctance to step into plans like that, do you think?
There's a number of reasons, but when you go back and look at specific detail, it's not this year, but in the previous year we had asked specifically why that number was so small. Mm-hmm. They don't like to give up control. If you turn 65 and you've got $200,000 in your 401k or IRA, very few people want to just basically give that whole $200,000 over to an insurance company to give them a guaranteed amount the rest of their life. In response to that, both insurance companies and mutual funds are coming up with new products to try to allow the individuals to keep some of the control and still get some kind of guarantees. But that new hybrid type of product is relatively new right at this particular point.
What is the number one or two thing that really jumped out at you, Jack? As the guy doing the research, what really jumped out at you in conclusion?
As you and some of your listeners may know, many of the employers who are providing 401k plans have modified them in recent years to do something called automatic enrollment, where instead of leaving it up to the employee to choose to participate, they automatically put the employee in on day one. If the employee wants to opt out, they can. Mm-hmm. But because of inertia, basically participation rates, especially for low-income individuals, have almost doubled from being in the 40% range to be in the high 80% range. So that's very, very good. But because employers don't want to scare employees away, they tend to default them in at very low contribution rates, about 3%. And even if you have a 50% match from the employer, 4.5% of your salary as savings each year is just not going to get you where you need to be. So what has happened is that employers have also, in many cases, added something called automatic escalation, where every year they will increase the employee's contribution rate by 1% from 3 to 4 to 5, et cetera. Now, the employee can basically opt out of that anytime they want, but what we found thus far is that, again, as long as this is done automatically, most employees basically just let this thing ride. But we don't know how long they're going to let it ride because this is relatively new. Most employers just put this in 2007. The good news is many of these employees said they would let this go up to at least 10%, and 20% of the employees said they'd let this go up to at least 15%. Now, I realize this is only a response to a survey, but that's extremely promising if employees will allow their contribution rates to get up to the levels needed. And most financial professionals will tell you that's got to be between employee and employer contributions, someplace between 12 and 15% a year if you're going to have a comfortable retirement when added to Social Security. So hopefully this is a new kind of plan design which at least will help those currently young enough to benefit from it.
And finally, it's clear the scars from the major market downturn, the so-called Great Recession of 08 and 09, clearly the scars show from that massive downturn, right?
There's no doubt. I mean, we just saw basic confidence fall off a cliff when we did our 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012 surveys. The good news, though, is I think for the first time ever, a lot of the false optimism, people who are in their 50s who hadn't saved a penny, who said, I'm going to be comfortable in retirement anyways, I think they're finally getting the fact that they need to do something. The bad news is they haven't started doing it yet, and I think it's imperative that people figure out a target and start doing planning to hit that target as quickly as possible.
Jack Vanderhei from the Employee Benefit Research Institute. Do you have a plan? Now, if you're already retired, how's it going? Do you need additional income in retirement? Are you concerned about the volatility of the market? Listen, we talk a lot on this show about retirement income, but please don't misunderstand. That's one of the specialties that we have at the Presley Group. But if you're in retirement and you're saying, okay, I've got to have some savings that I know are safe, but I don't want to stick my money into a CD or a money market paying nothing, give us a call. If you're already retired, we have plans that will work beautifully for you as well. Our number is 791-5773. But our focus, certainly right now, is what Jack just talked about, how Americans need retirement income. Because it's not how big is your nest egg. The focus has to be how long will my nest egg last? And so to that end, we have tools that can help you because they can take away the worry about what happens if the market goes down? What happens if I run out of money? At the Presley Group, it's based on guarantees. We sit down with you, we work through a plan, and we show you how contractually guaranteed, using a rock-solid A-rated insurance company, we're going to be able to provide for you a guaranteed, steady retirement income. And that income will last for your lifetime and the lifetime of your spouse. So to learn more about creating that retirement income that so many Americans need, give us a call, 791-5773. Again, we're at 791-5773. You can also request an appointment online at safemoneyplan.net. That's safemoneyplan.net. Back with more of Your Money Matters in just a moment. Welcome back to this best of edition of Your Money Matters here on Talk 107.3 FM. Matt Kennedy along with Christy Smith. Remember, you can always reach us online at safemoneyplan.net. Today, we're kind of reaching back in time and replaying a show that originally aired the one of the first weekends of this new year. And Christy and I had the chance to sit and just chat about where we thought the stock market was going for 2014. It's a question we're constantly asked. The tools that we use at the Presley Group, this fixed indexed annuity strategies, are never at risk if the stock market takes a downturn. Our clients never lose money when the market goes down, and you share in gains when the market's rising. Well, since you share in gains when the market's rising, we want the stock market to go up. So we're constantly asked, where is the market going? Where is the stock market headed? So in this best of segment, let's go back to early January when Christy and I talked about our outlook for the market in 2014.
One of the things that I feel so privileged is to be able to share what we do and our passions with you each and every week. And I have to tell you, Matt, this year I was Christmas shopping at Mala, Louisiana, and I went to get my credit card out and hand it to a store clerk to pay for something I was buying. And she said, "Oh, are you that Christy Smith on the radio?" And I had to think about it for a minute before I said yes, because I looked a mess that day, and embarrassingly said yes. And but it made me feel so good because she said, I listen to your show every week.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
It made me feel so good. And one of the things that we pray about every week before we even do this show is that God's going to lead us to help the people that He has intended for us to help, and we're just so privileged to be here with you each and every week. Now, listen, one of the things that we're getting asked all the time right now is, what is this year going to look like? The stock market has really been great to us over the last 12 months.
Fabulous.
And in fact, I met with a gentleman earlier in the week. His gains were over 20% this year. And so, the real question is, what is the stock market going to do?
Well, the truth is, of course, nobody knows. So I went and you and I kind of did some research and went to one of our favorite resources, cnbc.com. And Christy, for everybody who says, oh, the market's going to be great, I can find you someone who says, oh, the market's going to crash this summer. So the truth is, you've got about a 50-50 split. But the headline from CNBC on Monday was Outlook on 2014. Soaring stocks, government gridlock, worry investors. Okay? Right. I think anytime there's been a run-up of over 30% in the S&P, you have to believe there's going to be some kind of a pullback. Well, one of the questions becomes, well, when does that pullback happen? But listen to what financial planner Mark Cortezzo tells CNBC. No one ever wants to rebalance their portfolio when markets are rising.
And we all get greedy.
It just feels wrong. But if you don't rebalance, remember, you've gotten a year older, your portfolio has gotten more risky, and people say, the bull's going to keep on running. And then when things turn sour and there's a pretty serious correction, because you haven't rebalanced and haven't taken out some of the risk, you get hit even harder. The story goes on to say, the question is whether the stock market has already priced in all the good news. And by good news, Christy, more and more companies are hiring. People are going back to work. 30% rise in the S&P, along with the general strength of stock markets across the world, have advisors and investors anxious in early 2014. Are you anxious?
Well, I think people are beginning to be anxious. But again, who wants to rebalance when they're seeing 20% gains for the year?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I like in this article, Matt, is where he says that he worries that people have lost their respect for risk. Yep. He says it hasn't rained in a while. And, people are throwing away their umbrellas. And that's a good way to think about it. Because when it hasn't rained, think about it. How many times, if it hasn't rained in a month, how many times are you going to go back inside before you leave the house to grab your raincoat or grab your umbrella? Yeah. You're probably not going to do it.
He writes a 20% correction in the equity markets is going to happen. It's only a matter of when. Now, we're not doomsayers here. We're not going to sit here and say, it's going to happen, we guarantee it this year, the end is coming. But when you have had gains like we've had, and you've got a 401k and you're over age 59 and a half, you're approaching retirement in 2 to 5, 6 years. Wouldn't it be prudent to say, okay, I've had a 30% run up. Why don't I take some of that 401k money and move it into an IRA, into a plan like Matt and Christy are talking about, where I don't suffer market losses, where I can create income. Maybe you've got CDs in the bank. Because the other problem, Christy, is the low interest rate world we live in. Barry Glassman of Glassman Wealth Services tells CNBC, low interest rates on safe yields continue to be one of the biggest concerns. The reason is because people think, well, I've got to be in the stock market. I have no choice. I'm not going to settle for point-something% in a CD. But if you've got CDs out there, money market accounts, stable value fund accounts that make you feel good, but you're not getting any return, you need to come see us. You need to talk to us. Christy, I would argue that money in a CD right now is technically a losing investment.
Well,
because
it is.
Inflation is rising at about 2.5%, and you're making 0.5. Guess what? You're losing money in a CD.
Well, not only